German police have been accused of major security lapses this week. It follows a failed manhunt for a terror suspect who was allegedly plotting an airport attack. Syrian national Jabr al-Bakir arrived in Germany last year and was granted refugee status. His house was raided by police last week, but he managed to flee. Al-Bakir was eventually arrested on Monday, but killed himself in prison 2 days later. Peter Oliver reports.
Right, well, 22-year-old Jabr al-Bakir was found dead in his police cell in Leipzig on Wednesday evening. Now, senior figures involved in the state of Saxony have been talking to press about the events surrounding his death, and they've been less than convincing. One of the main points that's come up is that they said that he was not an acute risk, or not deemed to be an acute risk of suicide following consultations with psychiatrists. They did confirm, though, that the main cause of death that they're saying at the moment was that he was strangled by the shirt that he was wearing from the bars of his own cell. But that statement that he wasn't deemed to be an acute risk of suicide, well, it flies in the face of comments we heard from his own lawyer.
What went wrong is that they incorrectly estimated the danger of suicide. For me, there were enough indications that there was a self-endangering situation. There were the criminal charges. There was a hunger strike. Then there were the events inside jail, where he tampered with a socket. And what other indications do you need? I don't know.
Well, al-Bakir was accused of plotting to blow up one of the main airports here in Berlin. But the operation surrounding trying to bring him into detention has been described as a litany of errors, really, across the media here in Germany. If we look back to 2015, he was cleared by security services and deemed not to pose a risk. He was granted asylum. There was then this operation in the city of Chemnitz where he'd been living, which was a huge operation, but failed to detain him. That resulted in a 2-day manhunt across the country before he was eventually detained in Leipzig. But it wasn't by the police, it was by Syrian refugees who he'd gone to try and get shelter. They'd detained him, tied him up, and called the authorities. Now, there's been a strong reaction from politicians. We've heard from the Interior Minister here in Germany, Thomas de Maizière, saying that relating to the death in custody of al-Bakir, that what happened demands a quick and comprehensive explanation. But that quick and comprehensive explanation certainly wasn't forthcoming in the press conference that we heard on Thursday. Just more questions have been raised over how somebody who was in custody, who was deemed by his lawyer to be a suicide risk, wasn't watched and was able to take his own life in this case.
Peter Oliver reporting there. And we discussed the mishaps by German police with former British intelligence officer Annie Machon and counter-terror expert Ricardo Beretsky. Excuse me.
Well, I'm sure the security infrastructure will say that lessons have been learnt from this, but it does sound like there was a breakdown of communications between different sections of the security forces and the police. So it's a bit of a finger-pointing exercise where they're saying it wasn't us, it was them, they'd failed to do this, they didn't get their operation sorted out ahead of time, whatever. So all this finger-pointing indicates to me that they are desperate to blame each other rather than themselves. So I think there should be quite a lot of soul-searching, because it sounds like this was a very high-level investigation, a very high-level threat, and yet they managed to miss the key alleged terrorist.
The fundamental rules in apprehending any terror suspect is key to get the information, because there could be a lot of other information attached to this incident. And the key is prevention. Prevention. And by failing to do the things they are supposed to do, they're actually not doing the prevention, they're causing the opposite effect. And that's a very dangerous situation.
In America, media outlets are reportedly biased towards presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, allegedly working very closely with her campaign. We will lift the lid on that story in just a moment.